Welcome to iPad Pros, the show all about using your iPad to be productive and get work done. I'm Tim Chen, host of the show.
My personal belief, and I think I've stolen this from someone else, but my personal belief is that the best position is the next one. And the iPad enables you to move from like using it as a traditional laptop, or using it with an external monitor, or using it on the bed, like or on a sofa with Apple Pencil. And I always have an Apple Pencil with me. Sometimes I love editing with the Apple Pencil on the couch or just kind of sitting in a comfortable spot on the floor. And also when I'm carrying my smart case around, I don't have to carry the bulk of the keyboard, and I can use my Apple Pencil to get it done. Sometimes I like using the keyboard too, and the trackpad. And it's just nice to kind of be able to do it any which way I feel at the moment.
Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of iPad Pros. I'm super excited for this episode as it kicks off a new series I'm going to be doing all about photography and photo editing. So, contrary to the last episode that I recorded, I ended up passing along my 12 mini and picking up a 14 Pro Max. So I am all in on the new iPhone and have been really taken aback by just how great the camera is in this new line of phones. And it's the first time I've had 3 lenses on my iPhone. I've never had a Pro phone before, and I'm taking a lot of ProRAW images as well. And I've been learning like how to edit these photos. It's just been a really fun and enjoyable experience diving into this world of photography, and I think I'm probably not the only one out there that the Pro phone, this may be your first Pro phone, or this may be the first time you're shooting in ProRAW because of the incentive to use those 64 megapixels rather than 12. So there's a lot of incentive for the first time to use ProRAW in a way that it wasn't there in the past. So I thought, let's dive down this rabbit hole and see how deep it goes. And this is the first of what will be many episodes covering photography and photo editing on the iPad, and I guess on the iPhone a little bit here with the capture and some editing as well. And I'm going to be diving into all of the major apps, and this one will start out with one of my favorites, Pixelmator Photo. So there will be episodes on Darkroom and Lightroom and all the other apps that I'm discovering as I'm going through this process of seeing what tools are out there for iPad, and I want to dive into all of them to see where the strengths and weaknesses lie in this kind of photo editing realm. So in this first episode, we're joined by Rishi, who is a Pixelmator Photo user. He has been using it for many, many years now, and we dive into his uses of the app and kind of his style of editing and the kind of photos he likes to capture and the tools he uses as a photographer. As a reminder, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/iPadPros or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. With that, here's my interview with Rishi, all about Pixelmator Photo. Enjoy.
Welcome to the podcast, Rishi.
Thanks.
So you're the first of what I hope is many guests as I embark this journey of photography and specifically photo editing and ProRAW editing. And and a dramatic change from the last episode people heard is I got rid of my 12 mini, handed that down to a family member, and I have a 14 Pro Max, and I've just been stunned at the image quality and depth that you can get out of that 48 megapixel sensor, especially in the ProRAW format, and that led me down the rabbit hole of, let's do photo editing for the first time in my life, and on iPad as well as the phone, and I've been trying out a bunch of different apps. And you use Pixelmator Photo, which is one of the apps that I bought a long time ago, never really did much with, and I was grandfathered into the lifetime subscription thing that they're doing now. So that's where we're going to start, I think, is Pixelmator Photo. We may touch a little bit on some of the other tools out there, but welcome to the podcast for our photo series.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's interesting that you went from a mini to a max or to a Pro Max. That's a big jump.
I like to do extremes. I I went from the 5S to the 6 Plus to the original SE to the 12 mini, and I'm at the Max. I've never had a middle-sized iPhone. I've only had the big ones and the small ones.
Yeah, I've contemplated the idea of not having a phone, not having an iPad, just having an iPad mini for everything. But I use the watch also, and it doesn't quite work out. Plus, the camera is the main reason.
Yeah, the camera is the reason to have a phone, I mean.
Right. If it wasn't for the camera and the battery, then it would be an iPhone mini.
Yes, yeah. Because the camera, it's amazing. Like this is my first experience with the 3-lens system, and the third lens, the zoom lens, the 3x, is actually surprising me, especially in the daytime. What kind of good it's getting good shots out of that thing. It's not a 48 megapixel sensor, but the 3x in good daylight, it's getting me some shots I would not have been able to capture otherwise, which is cool.
Yeah, you definitely need good light for that lens, and if you have good light, it's great. If not, good luck.
Yeah, if not, don't use it. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, and then the 2x on this latest line, like I know it's using that 48 to do that, but it looks great. Like it looks better than the 3x, like because it's working with more data, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start with I guess your experience with iPad. Like what is the iPad to you, and like how do you use it as a tool?
Yeah, so the iPad, I don't have a Mac. I mean, I used to have a Mac, and eventually I'm a pretty minimal person, and I'm looking for kind of a very versatile machine. I love the iPad. I think just in tablet and as a laptop and as a general computing device, it does almost everything I need. It's like almost there to completely replace all the things I had with the Mac. I would say is like the main thing is a little bit more audio control.
Yeah,
is what I need. But other than that, I have a iPad Pro 11-inch. I have a Magic Keyboard. I have the Apple Pencil, and I also have the Smart Folio case. And it just really converts or transforms into what I need it to be. So for example, if I'm going out on the road and I carry my backpack, I put the iPad often in a Smart Folio case instead of the Magic Keyboard, so it's a lot lighter, and with an Apple Pencil, and I use it that way. And also, like, it works as a big battery for my iPhone when I go out for photography. It kind of doubles as an editing machine and a bigger battery.
Yeah, isn't it nice just charging the iPhone from the iPad? Like, that's such a nice feature.
Yeah, on my backpack, I have a slot for my iPad, and I can put a USB-C cable into it, and it routes to my pocket if I need to charge it while I'm walking.
Yeah.
Because honestly, photography and video take up a lot of battery power for the iPhone.
And it does, and that's something that what's the name of the big photo review that comes out for the iPhone every year?
The man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he mentioned the 48 megapixel ProRAW. It uses a lot more battery, evidently, if you're doing a big long photo day like that. It brings some external batteries because it'll use more battery to capture those.
Yeah, I'm personally not that big on the 48 megapixel aspect of it. For me, 12 megapixels is enough, and I've shot with pro cameras with 12 megapixels and printed them pretty large, and I was more interested always in low light.
Yeah.
And big sensors. So I'm glad that the option is there to reduce that to 12 megapixels, which is what I would do if I was using the iPhone Pro 14.
Yeah, I like it mainly for, the ability to crop in and it's still looking great provides some cool options in the editing field there.
Yeah, but I'm with the viewpoint that I like the challenge of getting it right the first time, without too much cropping. But that's just me.
Yeah,
I like to because cropping is great, but for me, overcropping is never quite the same, no matter how smart the computing technology is. but that's kind of my experience.
I agree. But if you're going in an African safari, you got to stay in the Jeep so the lions don't eat you.
Yeah, if you're going, I would say if you're going on an African safari, I would kind of rent a camera gear and learn about it a little bit, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. Oh boy. So, so outside of photography, what else do you do with the iPad? Like, is photography? What is it a hobby to you, or do you make? What's kind of photography to you, and like what different roles does the iPad fill?
Well, the iPad fills kind of all the creative roles. Like there's just not just photography, but I teach and I do online and in-person teaching. I use my iPad for that heavily. In-person teaching, like I do one-on-one teaching and tutoring. And if I do that, I have a portable 14-inch monitor where I have my iPad and Magic Keyboard in front of me, and I connect it to the portable monitor and put it in front of the student, so like they can see a mirror of my display. And it works really well for that when I'm showing some multimedia and some photography or whatever I'm showing. And I use it online. Like I said, the major problem is I want more audio control so I can use high quality mics for teaching, because audio is really important for me. That's really the only thing that's lacking, or the main thing that's lacking for me. Let's see, I also use it for music. Music is one of my favorite hobbies. I have a whole backpack music studio where I play the harmonica, and I'm able to play live with my iPad. And what I do is I connect my my harmonica microphone to what are those devices called? This hardware, not a synthesizer or something.
Yeah, like a MIDI.
But basically, I connect. Yeah, exactly. But anyways, I connect my microphone to that, and then I connect it to my iPad, and then I also connect my all that to a Bluetooth speaker, and I use GarageBand. So that sounds a little complicated.
Right.
I have a picture I can send you. But yeah, so I use it for live music, and it works great. And I also use it for recording music. I use it for video editing. I use LumaFusion, and I do short films with it. I use it for photography. I use Craft and on the iPad. So I use it for project ideas, for teaching. Craft is a great tool for teaching, and we can go into that if you want, but that would be a long podcast. and like I just basically use it for so many different creative tasks.
That's really cool. Yeah.
I kind of view the iPhone, to be honest, aside from the camera, I view the iPhone as a portal into my iPad. It's kind of like another monitor, and like when I'm traveling, it's just kind of like my iPad is my main machine. I use the iPhone as a portal to my iPad.
Yeah, in many ways, like it can run similar apps, just kind of smaller scale than perhaps less powerful in some ways. And then like you get to your iPads, like, oh, I can, it's a bigger screen and you can do more with that. And there are different apps, of course, that run more natively, and you have the pencil and trackpad and all the other input methods there. The
watch is kind of like a portal into my iPhone, and the iPhone is kind of like a portal into my iPad.
Yeah. The watch is fascinating, but we don't have time for that, I don't think. I could have a whole episode about the watch. The Alta reviews just came out today as we record, so very tempting. Anyways, let's dig into photo editing. So you're a Pixelmator Photo fan. Have you tried the other big tools out, and what about Pixelmator speaks to you?
Well, I use Photos, the main Photos apps, and Pixelmator. What speaks to me about Pixelmator is it feels like an iPad first app, and I like its simplicity. It's kind of, I feel like when they designed it, they, took into consideration the nature of the iPad. It feels lightweight, and it does what I want it to do, and it's pretty easy to use and pretty intuitive. And there's also no other alternatives. If you ask me, I would love to have Aperture on the iPad, but that's not happening, or as far as I know.
We would love to have that on the Mac too, I think, at this point.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah. No, yeah, and Photos has come a long way, but it's no competition to a dedicated app. And like, have you tried Darkroom and Lightroom and the other tools out there?
I've tried Darkroom. The interface just never felt right to me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's good at doing what I need to do, but I don't like using it. It has to be an enjoyable experience as well. And to be honest, I know Lightroom would be able to do everything I want to do, but I'm not a fan of Adobe products. I find they're kind of like do everything apps, like 100% of what you need.
Yep.
But and there's a whole Adobe ecosystem, the Adobe Cloud, and maybe in the future they'll try to get you into using like all their apps, which I don't need. So I find Pixelmator I use their graphic app as well, and Pixelmator Photo, and I find them lighter weight and more suited to my way of working.
Yeah, for me, it is the most it's the most fun, I guess I would say, of the editing apps I've tried so far. The interface it feels like it's working with you rather than you needing to learn this complicated system. And I've also enjoyed their machine learning kind of components that they have in there. I'll give it a shot, see if I like the effect. If not, I'll turn it off. Or like the magic wand machine learning thing, it'll show you what it did. You can kind of tweak it from there if you want to have a starting point. That's kind of nice. So it's kind of interesting them taking advantage of the machine learning stuff. I'm not exactly sure how it picks out some of that stuff. Like there's a machine learning crop and stuff. The one thing I do wish they had was like Adobe has a straightening button, and you just hit straighten and it kind of looks at the horizon, kind of finds how it should be straight. That is something I do kind of miss from the Lightroom.
Yeah, I'm sure Lightroom has a lot of useful features. There's like a few features that are missing from the built-in Photos app that Pixelmator has that are kind of key to me.
Yeah.
So I think another reason I haven't really got into Lightroom is because I'm not the kind of person looking for a lot of features. I'm just looking for the right features that I need and an enjoyable experience. And Pixelmator does have what I need. And it's just also I kind of do more minimal editing. I don't like to over edit stuff, and I don't like to spend a lot of time editing.
Yeah, that's something I found. With the Lightroom, you do have so many more tools, and I'd end a session. So this is my first week in real photo editing, where I'm not just hitting the magic button in Photos and I'm done. So this is my first week, and I've been like giving each of them like a day at night. I'd come home after having some photos from the day, and spend 3 or 4 hours, editing and seeing what these tools are all about. And I noticed with Lightroom, I would have these photos that just looked so much more edited and complex because the tools allow you to do some just wild things. And with Pixelmator, the photos, they seem just more natural because the tools, they don't lead to everything under the sun, but just the stuff that I think are the foundations of I think what you need in a good editor. Yeah,
for me, over time, I found like the better I get at photography, the less I do and the less I need to do. So that's kind of my approach. And I also, just my style as well is not really really saturated, really poppy stuff, really cool effects. Mine is more basic, minimal, and telling a story with the photos.
Yeah, and you live at a very photogenic part of the world, I must say. So it must be a treat capturing stuff out there.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm currently in Taiwan, and I love nature, and there's a lot of waterfalls and rivers, and I like water as well. So there's plenty to capture over here.
And is nature photography kind of what you focus on mainly, versus people and animals and things like that?
I would say no. I like nature, especially water, like waterfalls, rivers, oceans.
Yeah.
And I do that, but I'm also mostly like storytelling. And I'm personally going to be working on a series of short films. And what I like about the iPhone is that there's really kind of a natural way to go between videos and photography. And so for me, when I'm going out shooting, I'm also shooting video and photography together. And I also like, when I do nature photography, I like the human element in it. Like if I'm at a waterfall, I like to have some human or some life form in it to give it some scale.
Yeah.
And some perspective that people can relate to. So I like nature, and I like people, and I like them coming together, and I like stories.
Yeah, and you mentioned video, and that's something, once the 12 series came out with the HDR video capture, once that hit, I immediately would take like a, maybe 30-second or 15-second video alongside a landscape, because it is a much different experience just, panning and having that video that just looks stunning these days. Like, it's nice to have both. Like, and yeah, it's great to have that as another kind of thing to capture.
Yeah, I think all those tools are great. I tend to turn HDR off because, like, I like silhouettes. I like making the blacks blacker. If there's a person in there, I like it to have less dynamic range, so I can make the person black, and so people can focus on maybe the sunset, and being part of a story. So some of those things are great depending on what you do. A lot of people just want to take a simple photograph and want everything to show.
Yeah. And
I'm more about focusing on what I want to show. And so I like that about the iPhone and iPad and all these tools I like it when it gives you control in a simple way to be more advanced or to be more simple. Either let the computer take care of things for you, or in my case, I like it to sort of get out of the way, but give me all the important quality features that I want and be able to use that.
So what's your kind of workflow? So you capture on the 13 Pro, is that right? And then you're offloading them via iCloud if you're at home, and then if you're in the field, do you do field edits at all, like over USB to get it into your iPad, or kind of what's your kind of getting stuff to Pixelmator workflow like?
Pretty simple. Like I said, I usually take my iPad in its smart folio case in my backpack in case I need another battery, so I don't need to carry like a battery pack. And also gives me the option if I want to use the iPad to do some things like edit or whatever. And then when I go out, I just carry my iPhone 13 Pro. I do have some extras I carry with me. One is like this very, very lightweight tripod, very simple one. Mm-hmm. I also use my Apple Watch quite a bit. One of my favorite apps on the Apple Watch is a camera app, and I use that with the iPhone for a lot of my shots.
Yeah, it's great for like you can see what it sees, Yeah.
Exactly. And like oftentimes I want a human element in the photo, and either like I don't want to be inappropriate and shoot someone in a, maybe I have to be the human element in part of the photo. And with the Apple Watch, I can put the phone on a tripod and set the frame how I want and put myself in the picture and control it remotely, which is awesome. One of the reasons I originally bought the Apple Watch.
Is the phone in a kind of special case that has a tripod thing within it, or are you using Glyph or?
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned Glyph. I forgot the name of it, but that's what I got a long time ago to mount the iPhone to my tripod.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, that's Studio Neat, I believe.
Yeah, and another small thing I have, which is really cool, is I'm using the standard iPhone clear case that Apple makes for my iPhone, mm-hmm. and I have an ND filter. And for a long time, I found that a lot of these phone cases, camera company phone cases, try to make these lenses you can put on the iPhone.
Yeah, I had the iPro lens back in the day for the 4S, and it's like, this is fun. It's like, they were expensive, but...
Yeah, I found them fun, but I didn't like putting lenses on my iPhone. I like the built-in lenses,
Yeah.
and that's all I needed. But one lens that I wanted was a neutral density lens, an ND filter. That basically, that kind of lens basically cuts the light. That goes into your lens. All it does is cut the light.
Interesting.
And
Because normally you want more light, but I guess not, and if it's too bright.
Yeah, so the way the ND filter in a traditional camera works is when you want to take shots like with water, like if it's the ocean, and you want the water to look like sort of have this natural motion, this natural blur effect, which people wonder, like, how did you do that? Like, how did you get the water to look so cool? It's not Photoshop. It's just cutting out the light so that you need maybe 10 times more light to take the photo. And so you put your camera on a tripod and you take the photo. Because the light is a lot less, you can take like a 13-second shot, 13-second exposure or something like that. And what that does is anything that's moving in the frame will become blur, and anything that's not moving will be crisp, will be sharp. So it allows this really unique effect that I like. So for my iPhone, I don't know if you understood that whole thing, but for my iPhone, I have
I did, yeah. I know the makers of Halide have a secondary app that's less popular, but it's a capture app that's designed explicitly for that purpose. Are you using just the built-in camera app that in night mode, or how do you actually capture that?
Well, yeah, let me get back to that. But the reason I bought the ND filter is because I wanted to shoot in ProRAW and have this motion blur effect. So I spent a lot of time figuring out how can I put this ND filter on my iPhone. And I tried all these different gizmos, like a magnetic way to put it and different cases. Everything was kind of too time consuming. And finally, one thing I found which was interesting was that I got rid of all the gizmos and I had an ND filter, and I put it right over the camera, and for some reason the Apple case like kind of holds that filter in perfectly without using anything. So I just kind of like pop it on the back of the lens and it fits, and I don't need anything. So that works out great. And the reason for the ND filter is because I want to do water shots and I want to use ProRAW. And apps like what was the name of the app you're saying from Highlight?
I forget the name. If you look them up in the App Store, they do have a capture app that is different from Halide. That is for these long exposures. There's even like tech in there to like try to remove crowds, I guess, from these long captures.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I was using that app, and I also used a built-in camera app because the built-in camera app has a long exposure mode as well if you use live mode. The only problem with those apps or using this long exposure mode in those apps is that it uses some fancy technology, maybe some video, and the end result is the quality of the image is not really that great for printing or blowing up. It's not as high quality as a regular photo. So
it's Spectre Camera is the other app. It's $5.
Right, that's right. So Spectre app, I used that for a while. It works pretty great for that kind of photo. And but I preferred the built-in camera app has a live view. And when you take a photo in live view without any lens or anything, without any ND filter, if I take a photo in live view of water, and then I have to hold it very still for 3 seconds, because that's how long live view takes, I believe, to capture an image.
The live photos?
I put it on a live photos,
yeah.
Right? Sorry.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like live photos are slightly longer with either. It's got to be the OS or I don't know. It seems like on the 14 Pro, it might be nothing, but it feels like they're a tad longer than they used to be. But I'm not sure if that's true.
I don't know, because I don't have a 14 Pro and I haven't tried it too much on the latest
I need to do
iOS
a comparison between my old photos and see. But yeah, so you'll hold it on a tripod for 3 seconds.
Or hold it extremely still, because they don't want it too much longer than 3 seconds, because people won't be able to hold it still that long. So the reality is like you can do these kind of shots in 3 seconds, and it makes it easy to do these nice effects for long exposure, which is hard to show on an audio podcast what I'm talking about. But like the thing is that it uses some video technology and stuff, and it's just not as high res or just lower quality. It works great on Instagram and stuff, but not so great on printing.
So you take these live photos and you throw them in to what app to create this effect?
Okay, I don't throw it in any app.
Oh.
So I take the live photo on the iPhone. Like if you go to an ocean or something where there's water or anything moving, put the live photo on, hold the camera extremely still and take the photo. Hold it, I would say, for 3 seconds, which is what I think how long it takes. And then on the top left of the at least on my phone, the top left of the photo, you'll see you can choose. There's like 4 options.
I forgot
the other ones
that
are
was
gimmicky
a
to
thing.
me.
Yeah, totally forgot that was
They're
a
mostly
feature.
they're mostly gimmicky, but I love the live exposure one, which for some reason nobody talks about. That is the coolest feature because I know doing photography as a sort of professional, like that takes a lot of effort to get those kind of photos. And the iPhone just like kind of is like a cheat. It makes it so easy. and so, the built-in app does it automatically for you. And then you just refine it on the Pixelmator Photo or Photos app.
Yeah, I'm playing around with that now. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, there was a photo I just sent you, which basically was done in live photo, but I don't know how to describe it, in audio.
Right, yeah. So, okay, and the live photos, that's something that I find frustrating with Pixelmator, at least, and I'd imagine most apps would have this problem of you edit your stuff in Pixelmator, then it's back in the camera roll, and now it's no longer a live photo because of all the edits.
Yeah, I mean, the way my process is basically, if I do a live photo shot, I call it long exposure, then I click the edit button in the built-in Photos app first and set it to long exposure. And then from that point on, I do everything else in Pixelmator.
Yeah, because at that point you're losing the live photo aspect of it being live, and it just turns into the long exposure where it's a static.
Yeah. So I don't like to mix and match between the Photos app and Pixelmator. I like to stick with one all the way because I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, and I kind of feel nervous that some things are getting lost when I switch between apps.
Yeah.
So I would love to know what's going on more, and also it's just a more flowful process if I stick with one app for editing. So any serious photo I usually edit in Pixelmator. Any casual one, or if I just want to see if this photo is something that's usable for me or something I want to play with more, I'll edit it first in the built-in Photos app just to play around with it, and then I'll undo all the edits and go to Pixelmator and do it the proper way on my iPad.
Yeah. And as far as the photo library, you're just using the iCloud photo library. There's no like that is the library you're using. I know like Lightroom has their own tools. I think Pixelmator it only integrates with the built-in library, is that right?
Yes, and I love that. I love to keep it simple. Before I used to have this complicated backup procedure and all these ways of doing things.
all these ways of losing data too, if you don't do it right. Yeah.
And that's what happened. Like I thought I super backed up everything and I made one mistake and all the hard drives are connected and like it just became overly complicated and I lost things.
Yeah.
I found iCloud to be incredibly reliable for me, incredibly simple. The only problem is that like it takes time before it shows up on my iPad for editing.
Right. And then, a lot of times it'll pause uploading if you're on battery power. It's like, no, keep uploading. And then storage space is always at a premium with, we're capped at 2 terabytes until we get the Apple One subscription. I wish they would let you just, let me buy 4 terabytes without going to Apple One. That'd be nice.
Yeah. So like, I'm kind of picky on what photos I keep and what photos I delete. I don't want like 20 photos of the same thing.
Yeah.
So I shoot everything in ProRAW. unless I'm using live photo. The live. You said it was live photos.
Yep.
Unless I'm using that, but I try to shoot as much as possible in ProRAW and just keep the shots that I like. I don't want a big messy iPhoto library.
Yeah, I need to do better at having like a weekly cleanup.
Yeah, I'm very methodical about that because keeping my library organized means I just enjoy it more and I can find what I'm looking for. Sometimes having fewer pictures of the same thing is more rewarding. It's like more special.
Yeah.
So I don't need like 10 shots of one person. I just want like 1 or 2 that are really good.
Yeah. Now, for those that are new to ProRAW, like me, so on the newest phones, it enables you to capture the 48 megapixel camera, amongst other things. But so if you are on an older phone, like you said earlier, that 12 megapixels is all you really want for most photos. What are the benefits of ProRAW versus the standard capture? There's more like. Does it allow for different edits that are just not possible with standard images?
I love ProRAW. I find that more than the edits, it's just, for me, the picture looks more natural. Like, it has that natural grain. I find the smart computing stuff is good and stuff, but there's something about when I'm not shooting in ProRAW, it just kind of feels like pastel-y or like smoothened out. And I just love the natural ProRAW look. It's just the photos are better in my opinion. That's number one. Mm-hmm. And number two, there's just more data. So like editing, you can do more with editing without it destroying the picture. And you know most people won't notice that the destruction of their pictures with editing, because you mainly see it when you won't see that on Instagram in small phones, but you'll see it when it's blown up or in prints or on big screens.
So like with ProRAW, when you're choosing to change the highlights or shadows, it has data of like what the highlights and shadows are versus if it's just a standard JPEG or the high efficiency thing, it's just kind of looking at the photo and doing its best to guess at what those are. Is that, I guess, the big difference as far as the software understanding what's what in the photo?
Well, I would say it's just like audio. There's lossless audio and there's compressed audio.
Yeah.
So, you know, basically you lose something by compressing the photos, no matter what fancy words they use. It's still a compressed photo. So like, because there's a lot of data that's captured, and I love having that data, but I don't want too much of the data. Like 12, I'd rather have ProRAW in 12 megapixels than HEIC is what it's called, or JPEG, and 48 megapixels. ProRAW in 12 is much more useful for me for printing, for Instagram, for Facebook. It's just a much better usable in real life format. Whereas 48 megapixel is like a good story, a good like, hey, this is cool. We got like a big number.
Yeah. And do you do any photo library management within Pixelmator itself, or do you mainly do that within the Photos app?
I do it within the Photos app because Pixelmator uses the Photos app,
right,
or the same thing, but the Photos app just seems to do it better. I do a little bit in Pixelmator while I'm in it, but I mostly use Pixelmator. I organize stuff in the Photos app, and then I edit on Pixelmator, and I save it. Other than, you know, putting my favorites on a photo or something, I generally use the Photos app for my organization.
Okay. And you'll overwrite the original image with the edits? You won't save like a duplicate before you start? Or because you can always revert to the original, which is nice.
Yeah, so there's really no need, right?
Yeah.
If whatever edit I do, I can always go back to the original file. However, like occasionally, like I'll need a different edited version for a different reason, depending on what I'm doing. Maybe a different crop or just a black and white look or something. So, you know, sometimes I'll duplicate the photo to have like a different version of the edit. But I don't need to duplicate it to save the original because that's there.
Yeah.
I just trust it.
Right. So, what's your actual editing process? Like, do you go from the top of the list of like white balance down to the bottom and just kind of tweak every knob until you kind of have it like you just see how it affects it, and or do you have certain like things you go to first and then you tweak some other things from there?
That's a good question. There's not really too much of a science, but there's very similar things I end up doing for my photos. Maybe one of the first things I might do in Pixelmator Photo is there's that ML button that does everything automatically. I don't know what ML stands for, but there's a magic wand
machine
button.
learning.
Okay, yeah. So it kind of does everything automatically, and I just click it to kind of see what the computer thinks, what Pixelmator thinks it should look like. And usually I click it and unclick it.
Yeah, and you can also
because,
click it. You can click it section by section, so you can do a white balance machine learning, and like, you can see what it thinks there, and yeah, you can go individually, which is nice.
Occasionally, I like the machine learning as a starting point, but most often not. But every single section of the Pixelmator controls, like there's a white balance section, a lightness section, hue and saturation, and other sections, they have their own machine learning just for those specific controls. So it's like a subset of machine learning for the whole photo. Mm-hmm. They have machine learning for individual aspects like lighting or sharpening, or maybe not sharpening, but lightening and white balance and stuff.
Yeah. And that's super helpful, I find. At least it's like let me see what you're recommending and maybe change it from there.
Yeah, so I do that. Oftentimes I'll machine learn the lighting and adjust it. And if it doesn't look right, I'll just turn it off and adjust it myself. But yeah, I think a lot of my photos are designed to be in black and white. I like black and white. And also all of my photos are in square. I'm a fan of the square format. So
is that an Instagram holdover? Like, were you early days in Instagram, and like, is that a relic from those days?
No, I hate that it's associated with Instagram. Okay, actually,
I don't use Instagram anymore, but I was like a part of the original before they were part of Facebook Instagram group, and stopped using it after it got sold. Yeah,
when Instagram was cool. Yeah.
Yes, back in school. Yep.
I've explored different formats, but I love the square format for my own style. I love that constraint, the challenge of like, okay, my photos are square, so like I have to think of the photo in that way. Going back a step, one of the things I wanted to tell you what I love about the camera app, one of my favorite features is that I set my camera app so that when I'm taking the photo, it shows it in black and white before I take it. So I know what it's going to look like in black and white, so I can preview in black and white. And in the camera app, I can set the aspect ratio to what I want. So my camera app, when I open it up, the photos already, what I preview is already square, and it's already in black and white. So I can see exactly how it looks. I wish Halide would do that, and I messaged them about it, but they haven't done that. But that's like a really key feature for me.
Is that I was going to ask if that was a photographic style, but it's not. It's the effects thing with the original vivid, warm, and you're using like noir.
No, I'm not using noir. I'm using what am I using? Mono.
Okay.
So, but that doesn't matter, because even if I use mono and even if it's in square, the original format in the original sensor size, which is 4:3, and in color, is all that information is still there. So I can revert it, even if I take it previewed like that, I can still revert it back to the original color and
because you're capturing,
ratio.
If you capture in RAW, it's all the data's there. It just gives you an idea.
Yeah,
that's
so
really
the
cool.
preview is just an estimation, but actually after I take the photo, I revert it back to the original color, because I want to do the black and white, not the way that the preview looked, but exactly the way I want it.
Right.
So I take off that effect. So actually that goes back into my photo process. I set the camera app to how I want the photo, as close as I want the preview to look as close as the final image as possible. So I set it to square and black and white. And then in my Photos app, I revert it. I choose the photos I want to edit and I heart those photos. And then I revert those photos that I want to edit back to original in the Photos app. And then I go to Pixelmator and I recrop it back to square, maybe adjust it a tiny bit to how I exactly want it. And then I do, if it's a black and white photo, the first thing I do is, I change it to black and white. And Pixelmator has some features in black and white that are really crucial for me that Photos doesn't have. It really has more control of the black and white images. Like you have the black and white photos do have red, green, and blue channels. And so you can, when I put the photo to black and white, I can adjust the red, green, and blue channels. When you click the black and white section of Pixelmator, you'll see it shows you more options to control red, green, and blue and tone. And so that can adjust so it still plays with the color of the images. So if the images had some red in it and you adjust it, even though it's in black and white, those black and whites will increase in brightness and the rest of the image will stay kind of the same. It's something you have to play around with, and it's too hard for me to describe on audio.
Yeah.
But the point is, first I do some black and white adjustments, and I like to add grain to my photos. So maybe I'll add grain next, and that's another thing the Photos app doesn't do. It doesn't let you add grain. Apple just wants to make it picture perfect and smooth. And I really like a little bit of grain in the photo, a little bit of sparkle.
Yeah.
So Pixelmator has that.
And I find it interesting, black and white's kind of hidden, like vignettes also hidden. Like you have to go into like all the adjustments, customized adjustments, and it's not there by default, which I find curious.
In the Photos app or in the
in Pixelmator? Yeah, you have to go in and add it as an option.
Yeah, I forgot, but you can customize what's there by default in Pixelmator. So I customize it so it's always there. And I also got rid of some things that are distracting.
What kind of stuff?
You can customize the controls.
Yeah, what kind of stuff don't you use?
That's a good question. I haven't looked at it for a while, but let me see. I don't use... I think, honestly, I use most things. I don't use so much selective color, but I've used that sometimes. It really depends. If it's
That's a lot of fun. I've noticed, like, if there's like blue, you can like just touch up the blue to get it like the perfect shade. Like I sent that my cat in the window, and that was so fun. Just like the wall is this pretty faded, not so pretty blue, and like we made our wall look great in the photo.
Yeah, so because I do black and white a lot,
right? Less useful.
Selective colors.
Yeah.
But when I do use color, I like selective color. I'm very judicial. Like I use it subtly. I don't want it to look like I used it, so it should look natural.
But it was wild.
But it is awesome.
It was wild when I discovered that feature. It's like, oh, you can pick any of the major colors. Some apps, I'm not sure if this one Pixelmator has it, but you can use the night drop even to like pick it out. But yeah, let's just like blue and like it, like the curtains and everything. It just kind of looks great doing that. And sometimes it doesn't look so great, but other times it really pops and really looks good.
Yeah. So to be honest, I use most things depending on if it's a color photo or black and white photo, but I don't use color monochrome or sepia because I just don't do those kind of photos. But most things. I don't think I use levels that much.
Are curves something you use much of?
Yes, I use that all the time.
Okay, because I played around with it a couple times. Like, it seems like as I go through and make the adjustments one by one, by the time I get to curves, I have stuff looking pretty good, and the curves just mess everything up. Do you start with curves as like a baseline, then adjust from there, or how do you use curves?
Generally I use curves for black and white. where it works really well. And I don't use the color curves, those color ones. I actually am not well versed on technically what they do. I've always learned by experimenting. So the curves, there's a that first option, which is more about the shades of gray, and I basically just use it to control the contrast and the lightness. It gives you more control over contrast and brightness than the traditional light exposure. I don't know how to describe it, but it works really well for black and white. And it's one of the first things I adjust in terms of getting the contrast and brightness of the image the way I want it. I can go into detail and how I use it, but I think it would be kind of difficult in the audio.
Yeah.
To explain that in audio.
Good, yeah. Some other things I really like in the app is there's a machine learning match colors. So like it's almost like color grading, where you can pick one photo that you really like how the colors look, and you can hit match colors, and it'll like match your current photo with the one you're matching, which is kind of a cool thing because it's different from like, so you're matching colors of a completely unedited photo if you want to, versus copy adjustments, which will copy your current photos into a different photo. This is like backwards from that, which I find really interesting.
Yeah, I don't use that. I tried it a little bit, but I feel like it doesn't do quite what I want exactly. And that means I'm going to have to adjust it and spend that much time. Even if it's close, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I just want it how I want it. So I guess it's useful if you're in a rush or something and you just got to get it all done and get it as good as possible, but you're not a perfectionist like me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the copy adjustments is great. And you can now do that in the Photos app in iOS 16. And that's really nice because you can have one photo from a photo session and they're all like similar lighting, and you can kind of get them all in a good place after doing your first photo, which is nice.
Yeah, I think those are great features for people who want to get things done fast and are not so much into perfection.
Yeah.
But I choose which photos I want to keep, so I don't have like a huge amount to edit. I'm a minimal editor, but I do want it like exactly how I want it, or it'll bother me. So I don't use those features.
Is the Apple Pencil used in your editing at all? I know Pixelmator has, you can repairs with the pencil. There's like a double cap thing to like turn it into like the comparison tool, which I find is a pretty nice tool to kind of see where you came from.
One of my favorite things about the iPad is video editing and photo editing with a pencil, especially photo editing. Yeah. I find it to be very, very natural. I mostly use my pencil. Sometimes I use my hands. Mm-hmm. That's the thing about, like the pencil is great, but sometimes I feel like it's emulating a finger, and it doesn't make it that much more accurate. It helps a little bit, but I kind of wish they got even more accurate with a pencil, like very precise.
Yeah, it almost needs like haptics in the next pencil. Like, it would be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I would love it if it had mouse over, where you hover over the screen and you can see kind of if you're going on a website. If you're on a website and you can mouse over a link and it sort of like highlights it. But that's a different topic.
And then you could have the AirPods click, where it's like a fake click to like confirm. I think that'd be nice. But anyways,
I don't know, like
So do you use it with the curves? I would think that would be a useful thing where you're on the image itself using curves.
I do. I use a variety of things, because sometimes I think there's a saying about ergonomics. Like, I like to be in a good posture when I'm working, and people try stand-up desk and different ways to sit and everything. My personal belief, and I think I've stolen this from someone else, but my personal belief is that the best position is the next one. And the iPad enables you to move from like using it as a traditional laptop, or using it with an external monitor, or using it on the bed, like, or on a sofa with Apple Pencil. And I always have an Apple Pencil with me. I love editing with the Apple Pencil on the couch or just kind of sitting in a comfortable spot on the floor. Um, and also when I'm carrying my smart case around, I don't have to carry the bulk of the keyboard, and I can use my Apple Pencil to get it done. Sometimes I like using the keyboard too, and the trackpad, and it's just nice to kind of be able to do it any which way I feel at the moment.
Yeah, there are a fair bit of keyboard shortcuts within Pixelmator, but none that I feel would like. I'm kind of like going through and handcrafting an image. Like I'm okay touching things to do that. I will say, I will say on the M1 iPad Pros with the external monitor support in the betas here, external monitor support is great. Being able to use Pixelmator on a large 16:9 monitor where you have. Feels like a big old Mac app. I mean, it really does fit it scales up nicely to bigger displays, which is cool.
Yeah, some of the features of the pencil are crucial for me. Like, for example, there's a magic eraser button on Pixelmator, and that allows you to, like, if there's a pole or something in your image that you want to get rid of and you want to cheat a little bit,
yeah,
you use the magic eraser button and it just vanishes. And for that, like, the pencil is the best. It's like the easiest and most natural and most precise.
Zoom in all as much as you can to get the pencil, and the magic eraser works pretty well for you. I've used it in the regular Pixelmator app. I haven't used it in Photo quite yet.
No, I use it quite a bit for very subtle things.
Yeah.
And it works well, but it's not really meant to like delete massive things and completely change the nature of the photo.
Right.
So if you're trying to use it that way, it's fine, but I don't think it's good for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Apple Pencil, I think I use my iPad in tablet mode maybe 30% of the time. And for photo editing though, maybe 50% of the time or more. Maybe I'm not even sure.
It's so nice. Yeah. It's so nice just holding the iPad to edit versus having it in laptop or even on external monitor.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad if I don't use it in tablet mode because that's so. Yeah, I like tablet mode. I just love how light it is and how intimate it is compared to like a laptop. It feels like something different.
So night shift obviously is a no-no when photo editing. I'm not sure how I feel about True Tone. That's probably not great because it's adjusting to the light in the room, but you're seeing the monitor differently based on the light in the room. And then the new iPads, I guess I should try this out. There's like the mode where the XDR iPad Pros can be in like reference quality mode. That's probably what I should be doing when I'm editing photos, right?
Yeah, I mean, like those are things that can get really messy. I turn off the night shift mode when I edit the photos, or I generally
orange. Yeah. That's your face. That seems like it. Yeah. True Tone seems less unsure to me as to if that's bad or good when photo editing.
Yeah, I don't change those settings at all because I'll have to remember every time I edit to change things, so I don't like to do that. But maybe that could be a good shortcut or something like photo editing mode.
I wonder. I wonder if you can adjust that stuff with shortcuts. I'm not sure about like reference monitor mode with the XDR. I don't think that's in there, but True Tone may be in there, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, if I have strong opinions if True Tone is a bad thing for photo editing.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about reference mode, to be honest, for anyone who's not super pro, because the people are going to see these photos on different modes also on different screens. And so I just kind of default to how I view my iPad normally day to day and edit photos in that. I think that just kind of keeps it simple enough for me for my purpose.
So, denoising. For those that don't know what denoising is, what is it exactly?
I don't know. I don't like denoising. It's I actually like making noise than getting rid of it.
Because you had green to those, right? Yeah. So denoising is trying to get rid of like artifacts from the camera. Is that right?
Yeah. So the reason I don't know too much about it is because I just probably tried it a little bit and I don't like smoothing out things. For me, it's like, I like to make the photos a little bit more grainy and a little bit I like to destroy the photo a little bit more. So So like just making it, I think like trying to make it perfect for my taste is kind of always a letdown, because you can never make it like your eye sees it, and when you try to, it just looks to me like I'm trying too hard. So I go the opposite way.
And I noticed in settings you can enable extended values. Is that something you've played around with, or do the photos start to look too wonky when you have
I
that?
don't do that, because for me editing photos is like salt and pepper. My style is, there's a feature.
Middle. You're not like cranking the saturation to 100%.
It's like I want it to look like I'm not editing the photos. I want it to look like I didn't edit the photos, but that's my style. Or you can go the other style where you really want to show like the cool edits you did and make it look surreal or something. But that's not my style, so I don't use extended editing features.
Yeah. And then when you're done at the end of the day, you're just saving it to your photo library versus I'm looking at the export options. I mean, there's different
another reason I use Pixelmator Photo is for the editing options, the exporting options. And the final image gets saved to my photos and gets organized the way I like it to be organized. But
yeah,
I also post my images on Instagram or my website, and for that I use export and I use Pixelmator because I have
the standard Pixelmator.
I use Pixelmator Photo and the standard Pixelmator because I want to edit the photos at 900 pixels by 900 pixels for Instagram and my website, because I don't really want to put the full resolution image there.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want people to have access to the full resolution image either. So I do that. And also, like, the Pixelmator has a sort of template for how I want my photos to look. I put a little border around it, and I like having a text under my photo, like some one-line
like a
text.
watermark type
and
thing?
Not a watermark type thing, but more
frame.
like a phrase.
Yeah.
A frame and a phrase.
Yeah.
With my photos when I post on Instagram. So it gets exported in Pixelmator Photo to 900 by 900 pixels, and then it goes into the Pixelmator graphics app, where I put it into my template, write one line sometimes, and have a nice border. And now it's presentable the way I want it on the web or on my website.
I would think there would be a shortcut that could be done to do that kind of processing. I'm not sure which app would support that, but I think that's a thing somewhere.
I would think so too, but I haven't figured out a way to do that. I think I tried at one point, and maybe at the time I tried it, it wasn't possible.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's possible, because it would depend on the Pixelmator graphics app to provide some things.
Right.
Because when I write the text and stuff, it needs to go in the right place. And that would be an amazing shortcut for me if it's possible. You gave me something to look into again.
Yeah, I think so. It might not be Pixelmator that does it, but there might be some other tool that, you can tell at 900 by 900, there's a frame, it has the text that you want it, and it pops in the image from Pixelmator. And I would think there's got to be something that can do that.
I don't think so. I think that'd be nice, but there's only so many graphics apps on the iPad. And I think supporting shortcuts is pretty new. But if that happens, and if some app has that, I hope it's Pixelmator. They have a Pixelmator Pro 2 or something for the Mac, which is cooler than the iPad. I wish that comes with the iPad. I hope they put more focus into it. And I hope they have cool shortcut features.
What are some of the big features from the Mac Pro app that you want to see brought down to the iPad app?
I don't know, but I really don't know. But the graphics app on Pixelmator feels like they haven't done much with it. It's really kind of an iPhone app.
Yeah.
And it just does kind of what I need, but it's not... It feels like it needs a rethinking. and I can't use the Pixelmator Pro 2. It just looks cool on their website, and when I read about it, it looks like it can do a lot of stuff. Honestly, I just want a good graphics app for the iPad, and I think Pixelmator is a company that can do it. And I kind of wish Apple made Aperture and a graphics app, like a whole suite of professional apps. Final Cut Pro, like some cool name for a graphics app in Aperture, and like that would be like, there would be no question that the iPad is going to take off.
Yeah. I know people say a lot of good things about Affinity. I know the UI is a bit challenging for some. Pixelmator, the editing or the graphics app, I know had a pretty big update earlier this year that like we're alive, and there was a lot of awesome stuff brought to it. But yeah, it's still nowhere near as advanced as some of the other things out there.
Yeah, I felt it more of a superficial update. I didn't see too much in terms of features. I think they'll eventually get to an iPad. There was limitations with memory before.
Yeah.
And now the Pro opens up some more RAM possibilities. And they were saying they couldn't do stuff because of that limitation before. So who knows? Maybe they're working on it right now.
Yeah. Is histogram something that's useful at all? Like I see the charts and stuff and graphs and...
I tried to use it because I feel like that's a cool thing for a photographer to use. But I don't know. I use it and it doesn't seem to get the pictures the way I want it to. So I kind of like looking at the image itself and adjusting things just by seeing how it changes the images versus the histogram. I could never be good at it, even though I wanted to.
Yeah. Are you tempted to do versions of your photos in the full capture size, if only for the iPhone lock screen to have your own photos take up that full space?
Well, I like to print photos. So are you talking about making it, like, I'm not sure what you mean.
Oh, yeah. So you mentioned square images are kind of where you focus at. The iPhone lock screen is a little taller than a square photo.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's square is my default, is what I should say. But in certain situations, like for iPhone background image or something, or for some specific purpose, then I can go back and this is where I make a duplicate version of the image. So I can make another copy with even different editing for what it's useful for. If it's a document, or if I need on Craft, the header file uses a widescreen 2x1 image for my documents, and so I re-edit my photos for that. So yeah, but this is my default is square. I'm not lock screen is the big news this year. But it's like I'm not a lock screen user, so like it's like all this talk about the lock screen, and I don't even think about the lock screen.
Yeah.
So it's not my forte.
Gotcha. And then, do you know what happens when I share on Twitter a ProRaw image? Because it's got a. Is there some like low res version it's grabbing somehow, or I can't imagine it's grabbing a 70 megabit file and sending that to Twitter? Is it?
I'm not sure. Okay. I post some photos on Twitter, but it's not really a photo first kind of social.
The images don't look amazing there.
Yeah, so I kind of I experimented with using that instead of Instagram, but then I changed my mind because it wasn't designed for that.
Yeah. Do you use Pixelmator on your iPhone to do edits ever?
I do sometimes. Like I said, my iPhone is like a portal into my iPad, and sometimes like I'm kind of curious to see play around with my photo right away, and I'll do it on my iPhone. But when it comes down to editing the photo for a final version, I use my iPad. Using it on the road is good though. When I'm on the field and taking photos, and I want to see if the photo is kind of what I wanted, I can edit it a little bit there just to see, and then I can say, oh no, I need to take it a little different way. So I can, it's just like a good way to kind of preview and get an idea of what I want and kind of see if I need to take more shots in a different way.
Yeah. Portrait mode has come, I think, a pretty far way since it it did when it launched with the iPhone 10, I think it was. Do you do much with that these days?
Yes, portrait mode and also cinematic mode, which people will make fun of. But
Yeah.
portrait mode is really useful for me. But I was always frustrated because all the reviews on portrait mode really missed the point. They kept saying like, "Oh, now it's like a DSLR. You can do you can get blur to background." But that's not what DSLRs could do. DSLRs not only blur the background, but they also blur the foreground. Whatever's in focus is sharp, and everything around it is blurred out in a natural way. Whereas portrait mode previously only blurred out the background, but the foreground was sharp. And that's very limited, and professional photographers know how to make use of blurred foreground and blurred background to make your eyes focus on the right thing and make it look really special. However, I found in the latest release of iOS, which I haven't played around with too much yet, they have made portrait mode. They made a portrait mode update, so it does blur the foreground and background the way a natural big lens camera does, big lens, big sensor camera does. And I'm really curious about this because for me this is a huge deal, and I'm like amazed that I haven't seen any article talk about it now, but they all praised it when I didn't like it before that
Yeah.
much.
No, that's really
I
cool.
use it though. I use it for photographs of people. Sometimes though, aside from portrait mode, I use another app on my iPad called Focus, Focos, and that allows me to take a regular photo and blur it out, kind of blur out the background or blur out around the photo after the fact using I don't know, some algorithms or something. Occasionally I find that works better, but it's not that great of an app, but it does that specific thing. So that's another way. Sometimes I use that. But I now that portrait mode has been updated, I'm really curious to see how well that works for me.
And do you just use the standard natural light when you capture in portrait mode?
I try. I mean, natural light is the best, but I pay attention to lighting, and it could be natural or artificial lighting.
Oh, I meant
My
the
flash is
the software thing where it can change like high key light mono or the contour light. There's like all these different modes for portrait.
actually I do. This is one of the reasons I go back to the Photos app, and I don't use that all the time, but sometimes it's pretty nice. It works out really well. Most times it's kind of gimmicky. But occasionally, like if the photo is taken right according to how the iPhone computing sees it, it can be really nice. It can make the photo look nicer, make it pop a little bit more without it looking unnatural. So yeah, I use that occasionally.
Cool. And I noticed when I'm in portrait mode, there's this F button, and I can change the depth to f16 down from f1.4. What when would I use that? Is that like adjusting the portrait mode how big the blur is, or what is it doing there?
So like there's Apertures is what it's called. Not related to the app.
Okay.
But the lens has you can think of a lens having a hole that lets light in, and it's kind of counterintuitive. Making the aperture smaller, like f1.4, means you open up that hole really big and you allow more light in. And making that number larger, like f22, means you close down the aperture and make it smaller. So something like f22, when the hole is smaller, it's like everything is in focus and nothing is blurred out. That gives you the most range of things that are in focus. F1.4 means like the range of blurriness is really small. It means everything is kind of blurred out. And this works really nice, especially for portraits when taking pictures of faces. where you want the person in focus and you want the background and everything else blurred out. You would want to go to like f1.4 or f2.8. And if you want the person and you want a little bit of background to show like context, like maybe it's a person in nature, and you want it a little bit blurred out, but not totally blurred out. So then you'd go like a higher number, like f11 or something like that. And I think the best way to learn that thing is just to play around with it and see how it works. But I think that's a very cool feature.
Yeah. And then do you do much at all with pano captures?
I do not. I find that I like, they have an ultra wide lens now, and that's pretty pano enough for me.
Yeah.
So like, I tried pano. I think only I would use it if somebody wanted a really wide photo for some reason. But I like just using the built-in lens and taking it in one shot. But yeah, it's a cool feature to have for once in a while.
Yeah. Well, anything else about Pixelmator or cameras, or like, is the iPhone your only camera? Do you have other cameras in your arsenal, or is the iPhone your one and only camera you use?
I would say, I became for a couple of years, I was a real minimalist where I had everything I own fit in a 22-liter backpack. So I used to have a, kind of a mirrorless full frame Sony camera with several lenses, and it was just like kind of a pain to carry around and not very minimalist. So I just kind of wanted to explore, what if like the iPhones are getting really good and it comes with 3 lenses built in and it has computational photography. Like, what if that was my only camera for video and photography? I really like that constraint. What can I do with this? Can I do really high quality pictures? Can I do really high quality videos? And the answer for me is like, that is my only camera now for both video and photo, and I love it. And the answer is that like, if I know the strengths of the iPhone and the lenses and the sensor, if I know what it's good at, it can be better than a DSLR because it has advantages of portability, multiple lenses in one, combining video and photography and computational photography. But, if I want to do sports photography with the 3x whatever zoom lens, it'll be terrible because it's not
Right.
so great at low light.
Yeah.
Unless you know how to use it.
Perfectly still too for night mode, I
Right.
guess. Yeah. Which night
So
mode
for the type of
is
photos,
fascinating how good that can work. Yeah.
Yeah, like before I just wanted to say that the type of photography I do, like nature, or where it requires everything in focus, or journalistic type shots, I think the iPhone is really fantastic at that. That plays to its strengths. And for the type of photography I do, therefore, it's kind of the only camera I use, and it's amazing to have a camera that fits in my pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish they would have like a high-end iPad mini with the iPhone 14 Pro camera sensor on there.
That would be good, but they would also have to be able to make it work with the watch for it to be interesting to me.
Yes, that would be. I mean, that'd be great if you had an iPad with the greatest camera that Apple sells, and then you have the watch fully independent with this cellular data plan, and your watch could be your phone.
Do you ever use the watch with the iPhone for photography?
With the iPhone?
Yeah.
For the family photos where I need to be in the photos, occasionally my iPhone will be, on some kind of stand as I do that. But that's about it.
Yeah, I use it. It's actually a little bit buggy because I use it like crazy, and I found some faults. There's some issues with it when using live mode, because the problem is the watch gives you a 3-second timer.
Right. Yeah.
And but in that timer, like, you click the button, and if it's on live mode, the first 1.5 seconds it captures is during that 3 seconds. So
Right.
like, you have 1.5 seconds to prepare for the shot. If you want to capture, you want to get a long exposure shot where everything needs to be still and not moving. I keep asking them to make a 10-second timer, but I don't know. I guess I'm not popular enough for them to listen to me.
Yeah. Well, anything else we didn't cover that you'd like to before we wrap it up?
Well, in terms of the camera, like cinematic mode has been really useful for me for video editing, for video.
Yeah, the new ones, they do 4K and you have the option of 24 frames a second, which is nice.
I haven't played around too much with night mode, but I think that has a lot of potential for daytime shots. People use night mode for taking night shots, but I want to see what it's like to take a picture of like an ocean or some water at night mode, and how it like works for things it wasn't intended to. I guess I would say I wish Apple published a detailed paper, which is unlike Apple to do, about the implementation about what these modes do, so I could use them better for different things. But yeah, I'm going to play around with night mode. I think that has some interesting possibilities, and I want to see what it can do.
Yeah, with night mode, it won't even toggle unless there's like a certain amount of light not there, which you would need that kind of filter thing that you were talking about earlier to have that show up, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah. So I haven't played around with it too much, so I guess I wouldn't want to talk about it too much yet.
Yeah.
But something I'm going to explore.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I've been super impressed with the shots I've gotten off of it. I mean, the one I sent of the cat in the window is this morning. It was like a 1 second night mode thing that just turned out to be a great shot.
Right. I guess I would just say that the combination of the iPhone and the iPad, just like if you've done photography before with the traditional DSLR, it just makes it so much more, the workflow so much better, because you don't need SD cards and you don't need like to transfer photos from one machine to another. It's like everything just kind of works together, and the interface between the iPad and the iPhone is very similar. So it just works really well for me together, and I love this combination.
Very cool. Well, where can people find your kind of portfolio online?
They can go to rishio.com. My name's Rishi, so my website is rishio.com. And if they click on OFlow, they'll see my photography. Yeah, or Instagram, I am Rishio. So those are some places.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. I've been really diving into photo editing and spending all my nights kind of like geeking out with all these different tools out there, and Pixelmator is certainly one of my favorites. So it's been great to chat all about it.
Yeah, I look forward to your series. I'll be paying attention to it. It's an interesting topic for me.
Well, that was my discussion with Rishi all about Pixelmator Photo. My thanks again to Rishi for his time recording this episode, and my thanks to you for your time and attention tuning in. As you just heard, Pixelmator Photo it's one of my favorite photo editing apps on the iPad, but there are many more to dive into, and we'll be taking a look at all of those in the coming weeks. As a reminder, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/iPadPros or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. And with that, I'll talk to everyone again real soon.